The silence in the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center was shattered at exactly 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time when Admiral Sarah Chun received the call that would change everything. Military satellites positioned throughout the solar system had detected something unprecedented: a coordinated swarm of asteroids, each one larger than a city block, hurtling directly toward Earth's most populated metropolitan areas. The initial radar signatures showed at least 17 distinct objects. Their trajectories, calculated with terrifying precision to strike New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Lagos, and 10 other major population centers within the next 72 hours. This wasn't the random cosmic lottery that scientists had long predicted. This was something far more organized, far more systematic, and far more deadly than any asteroid threat humanity had ever faced. If you're watching this video right now, please hit that subscribe button immediately, because what I'm about to reveal could be the most important information you'll ever receive about our planet's survival. Leave a comment below telling me which city you're closest to, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why that location might determine your fate in the coming days. The asteroid swarm, designated as Cluster Delta 7 by military tracking systems, represents the most significant existential threat to human civilization since the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. What makes this situation exponentially more dangerous is not just the size of these space rocks, ranging from 200 to 800 meters in diameter, but their coordinated approach pattern that suggests something far beyond natural celestial mechanics. Admiral Chun, a veteran of 3 decades in aerospace defense, had seen her share of near-miss asteroids and cosmic debris, but nothing had prepared her for the systematic precision with which these 17 objects were approaching Earth's major population centers. The Defense Department's most advanced tracking systems, including the newly upgraded Atlas network and the classified deep space surveillance satellites, had been monitoring what initially appeared to be a standard asteroid field drifting through the outer solar system. However, when the objects began displaying course corrections that seemed to defy natural gravitational influences, military analysts knew they were dealing with something unprecedented. The first indication that this was no ordinary asteroid encounter came from Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the lead astrophysicist at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office, when his team noticed subtle but consistent trajectory adjustments among the cluster members. These weren't the random wobbles typically caused by outgassing or gravitational perturbations. These were calculated course corrections that occurred in synchronized patterns, as if the asteroids were being guided by some form of intelligence or advanced technology. The mathematical probability of 17 asteroids naturally aligning to strike 17 different major cities across 6 continents was so astronomically low that it couldn't be attributed to chance. Dr. Rodriguez spent 18 consecutive hours running simulations and rechecking calculations before reluctantly concluding that the asteroid swarm was displaying behavior patterns inconsistent with natural celestial mechanics. His report, classified at the highest security levels, triggered immediate activation of the world's most secretive planetary defense protocols. Military response teams across the globe were simultaneously activated through encrypted communication, channels that have been established specifically for this type of existential threat scenario. The United States Strategic Command initiated Protocol Omega-9, a comprehensive defense strategy that had been developed in secret collaboration with NASA, the European Space Agency, and military forces from 12 allied nations. Within 4 hours of the initial detection confirmation, secure underground command centers in Colorado Springs, London, Moscow, Beijing, and New Delhi were operating at full capacity, their personnel working around the clock to coordinate what would become the largest planetary defense operation in human history. The complexity of tracking 17 separate targets, while calculating interception possibilities and evacuation logistics, required computational resources that pushed even the most advanced military supercomputers to their absolute limits. The Technical specifications of each asteroid in the swarm painted a grim picture of potential destruction. The largest object, designated Delta 7 Alpha, measured approximately 800 meters in length with an estimated mass of 2.4 billion tons, putting it on a direct collision course with Manhattan's financial district. If this cosmic projectile were to impact at its calculated velocity of 18 kilometers per second, it will release energy equivalent to approximately 650 megatons of TNT, more than 12 times the power of the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated. The impact crater would extend for 30 kilometers in diameter, while the initial blast wave would level everything within a 100-kilometer radius, essentially erasing New York City and its surrounding metropolitan areas from existence. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the world's leading expert on asteroid impact modeling, described the potential devastation as beyond anything human civilization has ever experienced or could hope to survive in an urban environment. Simultaneously, the second largest object, Delta 7 Beta, was tracking towards central London with mathematical precision that seemed almost supernatural in its accuracy. This 650-meter-wide asteroid would strike the Thames Valley with sufficient force to create a crater extending from Westminster to the London Bridge, while the resulting shock waves would flatten structures as far north as Birmingham and as far south as Dover. The thermal radiation from the impact would ignite fires across southern England, creating a firestorm that could potentially consume the entire southeastern region of the United Kingdom. Military meteorologists calculated that the atmospheric disturbance alone would generate hurricane-force winds extending for hundreds of kilometers, while the debris cloud would block sunlight across Western Europe for weeks. The psychological impact on survivors would be equally devastating, as millions of people witnessed their civilization's most historic cities vanishing in matters of seconds. Tokyo faced its own nightmare scenario with Delta 7 Gamma, a 720-meter asteroid that military tracking systems showed would impact somewhere between Shibuya and Shinjuku, two of the world's most densely populated urban districts. The seismic effects of this impact would trigger massive earthquakes throughout the Japanese archipelago, potentially causing the catastrophic failure of nuclear power plants and creating a secondary disaster that could contaminate the entire Pacific region for generations. Japanese defense officials worked frantically with international partners to model evacuation scenarios, but the logistics of moving 37 million people from the greater Tokyo metropolitan area within 72 hours presented challenges that seemed mathematically impossible. Emergency planners calculated that even with every available aircraft, train, and vehicle operating at maximum capacity, they could evacuate perhaps 12 million people before the asteroid's arrival, leaving 25 million civilians to face certain death. The remaining 14 asteroids in the swarm were tracking toward Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Lagos, Cairo, Mexico City, Jakarta, Manila, Karachi, Istanbul, Moscow, Sydney, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston, creating a global catastrophe scenario that would simultaneously eliminate roughly 1/3 of human civilization's population centers. Each impact would generate region-specific secondary disasters. Mumbai's asteroid would likely trigger massive tsunamis throughout the Indian Ocean. Sao Paulo's impact would devastate South America's economic infrastructure, while Lagos would face the additional horror of petroleum fires from Nigeria's oil industry, creating toxic clouds across West Africa. The cumulative effect would be the collapse of global trade networks, communication systems, and governmental structures, potentially throwing surviving populations into a new dark age that could last for centuries. Military strategists faced the unprecedented challenge of coordinating defensive measures against multiple simultaneous targets while maintaining absolute secrecy to prevent global panic. The classified arsenal of planetary defense weapons, developed through decades of secret research following the success of NASA's DART mission, included experimental laser array systems, kinetic impactors, and even more exotic technologies that pushed the boundaries of current physics understanding. The European Space Agency's HERA mission data had provided crucial information about asteroid deflection techniques, but scaling these methods to handle 17 targets simultaneously required resources and coordination on a level never before attempted. Underground bunkers housed quantum computers that ran millions of trajectory simulations per hour, seeking optimal interception solutions that might save at least some of the targeted cities. The psychological warfare aspect of the crisis became apparent when intelligence agencies detected unusual activity from various extremist organizations and doomsday cults that seemed to possess advanced knowledge of the asteroid swarm's approach. Intercepted communications suggested that certain groups were prepared for the impacts, having constructed underground shelters and stockpiled supplies as if they had received prior warning. This raised disturbing questions about whether the asteroid swarm might be connected to some form of terrestrial conspiracy, or whether humanity was facing an external threat that had somehow infiltrated Earth's information systems. Counterintelligence operations were launched to investigate these anomalies, while simultaneously preparing for potential social collapse and civil unrest in the aftermath of the impacts. The scientific community struggled to explain the swarm's unusual characteristics, with some researchers theorizing about previously unknown gravitational anomalies in the outer solar system, while others suggested more exotic possibilities including artificial guidance systems or even extraterrestrial intervention. Dr. Sarah Kim, a leading expert in asteroid composition analysis, noted that spectroscopic data from the swarm showed unusual metallic signatures that didn't match typical asteroid compositions, suggesting these objects might be artificial constructs disguised as natural space rocks. However, with only 72 hours remaining before the first impacts, there was insufficient time for detailed analysis, forcing military planners to focus entirely on defensive measures rather than understanding the true nature of the threat. Emergency evacuation procedures began with carefully orchestrated media releases that downplayed the severity while encouraging precautionary relocations from major metropolitan areas. The challenge of moving hundreds of millions of people without creating mass panic required psychological manipulation techniques developed by military propaganda specialists who crafted messages suggesting temporary evacuations for routine asteroid monitoring exercises or urban infrastructure maintenance programs. However, as word began spreading through social media and independent news sources, maintaining the carefully constructed narrative became increasingly difficult. Satellite imagery showing unusual military movements and the activation of emergency broadcast systems in multiple countries simultaneously created suspicions that something far more serious was occurring than officially acknowledged. The technological resources required for planetary defense on this scale pushed human engineering capabilities to their absolute limits. The United States Space Force activated its classified Project Aegis, a network of orbital kinetic weapons, platforms that had been secretly deployed over the previous decade under the cover of routine satellite launches. These platforms carried experimental projectiles designed to fragment or deflect incoming asteroids, but they had never been tested against targets of this size or number. European space defense systems included powerful ground-based laser arrays, hidden within seemingly ordinary telecommunications facilities, capable of generating focused energy beams that could potentially alter an asteroid's trajectory through precise ablation of surface materials. Russian military space assets contributed nuclear-powered propulsion systems that could deliver conventional warheads to intercept points. Calculated by international supercomputing networks, international cooperation reached unprecedented levels. As traditional geopolitical rivalries were temporarily suspended in the face of species-level extinction, the Chinese military shared previously classified asteroid tracking data from their secretive lunar observation posts, while providing access to their experimental gravity manipulation technologies that remain largely theoretical but might offer humanity's only chance of deflecting multiple large asteroids simultaneously. Japanese defense contractors contributed advanced robotic systems that could operate in the extreme radiation environments near the asteroid impacts, potentially providing real-time guidance for defensive weapon systems. The coordination required? Secure communication networks that operate independently of standard internet infrastructure, utilizing quantum encryption methods and satellite relay systems designed to survive electromagnetic pulses from asteroid impacts or nuclear detonations. The human element of the crisis revealed both the best and worst aspects of civilization under extreme stress. Heroes emerged from unexpected places, airline pilots who volunteered for dangerous missions, reconnaissance flights to gather real-time asteroid tracking data, emergency medical personnel who remained at their posts despite evacuation orders, and communications technicians who maintained critical infrastructure systems, knowing they might not survive the coming impacts. However, darker aspects of human nature also surfaced as hoarding, price gouging, and violent competition for evacuation resources created secondary crises that diverted attention from the primary threat. Social media platforms struggled to combat misinformation and conspiracy theories while simultaneously serving as crucial communication channels for legitimate emergency coordination efforts. The final hours before impact created scenes of unprecedented human drama as billions of people faced the reality that their world might end within days. Religious gatherings filled every available space as people sought spiritual comfort in the face of potential annihilation. Scientists and engineers worked with desperate intensity to complete last-minute modifications to defensive systems, knowing that even minor improvements might mean the difference between partial deflection and total impact. Military personnel prepared for post-impact scenarios that included everything from coordinating survivor rescue operations to maintaining order among traumatized populations who might have witnessed the destruction of their civilization's greatest achievements. As the asteroid swarm approached its final approach vectors, humanity held its collective breath, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether the species would survive to see another generation or join the countless extinct civilizations that had failed to protect themselves from cosmic threats. The outcome would depend not just on technology and military preparedness, but on the fundamental resilience of human cooperation in the face of absolute terror. Whether this unprecedented crisis would unite humanity in its greatest triumph or witness its most catastrophic failure remained to be determined in the crucial hours ahead, as 17 city-killer asteroids continued their inexorable approach toward Earth's most precious and vulnerable population centers.